Well, good morning. It's good to be back with you for another Bible study as we begin a new Bible study series, Game On. My name's Kevin Young. I have the privilege of serving as lead clergy here at Christ Table, a group that is dedicated to those who are disillusioned, disappointed, disconnected, or done with the church or with Christians. And so if that describes you, you might find friends and community and maybe help here at Christ Table. If you like more information about that, you can visit the URL that's right there, www.christtable.today. If you like more information about this series in particular, in fact, you can also even download all of the resources or most of the resources for this study. You can visit that URL that's right there below me, go.christtable.today/game on. There you'll get a PDF of this study curriculum as well as our youth curriculum. You know, we have them in printed form here, youth and family study that goes along with this. We also have the printed curriculum as well, you know, here that goes with that as well. You can get those, but the PDF of that is online. If you'd like the printed materials as well as some gifts and things that go along with this study, you can get a resource box that goes along with this study. All of that information is right there at that URL, go.christtable.today/game on. Today, as we move into this study, we are finding ourselves in day 2 in Luke chapter 16 verses, actually there's only one verse today in today's study, Luke 16:10. And so as we come to this verse in Luke, Jesus is telling a parable, a story about a group of manager that is over things, and this is a very complex story, and we're not going to go into all the story of this. In fact, a few weeks ago I preached on this, but here what we're going to do is we're going to focus in on one verse for one particular reason, and that's because we this week in the study are looking at the pawn. So each week we're going to be looking at a different chess piece. In fact, one of the things that are a part of that resource box there that you can get online is this bag that has chess pieces in it. Pawns are the soul of the game. And so we're starting out talking about the pawn. For those of you who don't know chess, the pawn is the smallest piece in the game of chess. And you may actually know this word pawn because it has entered into the vernacular that we talk about, because pawns in the game of chess are often seen, especially by outsiders who don't know a lot about chess, as being weak, as being unimpressive. And they can be both of those things. You may have heard people described as being a pawn. We talked about this yesterday. Someone who's manipulated by someone more powerful, someone who's used by somebody to achieve their own goals, is oftentimes referred to just simply as a pawn, somebody who doesn't have agency on their own. Someone who is expendable, who lacks power, and who is kind of similar to the weakest and most unimpressive piece in the chess game. So whenever we come to this week, we're going to be talking about those who might have feelings of being weak. Those times in life where you feel unimpressive in comparison to other people. What do you do with that? Well, in the game of chess, things are not always the way that they seem. The pawn, which is the weakest, can also be the strongest piece when used correctly or when used well. Jesus seems to allude to this from a human standpoint whenever in Luke chapter 16, verse 10, he says, "If you are faithful in little things, you will be faithful in large ones. If you are dishonest in little things, then you won't be honest with greater responsibilities." Jesus seems to indicate that the way in which we live our lives daily has great impact on the way in which we live our lives on a large scale. The micro affects the macro. The many moments, M-I-N-I, affect the many, M-A-N-Y, moments. The many moments affect many moments. That's quite a bit of a tongue twister there, that those words are so the same sounding in English. But Jesus here is obviously encouraging you that if you feel weak, if you feel unimpressive, if you feel like a pawn, if you're being treated like a pawn, continue to remain faithful in the small things in which you have been called to because that is an indication that you will also be faithful in large things as well. And oftentimes people take notice of that. But if you are dishonest in the small things, then you probably will not be honest with the greater things and the greater responsibilities as well. One of the things about the chess piece, the pawn here, is that it can only move one square at a time. It doesn't have a lot of tricks up its sleeve. But what it does have is the ability to partner with other pieces. And as we discussed yesterday in the study, it also has one of the most powerful opportunities in the game of chess, and that is to transform itself into any other piece. And so oftentimes people who are smart players of chess don't discount the weak or unimpressive pawn. They actually use it to their advantage, recognizing that sometimes the greatest strength, sometimes the most impressive outcomes come from the weakest places, from the most unimpressive people, so to say. Pawns in the game of chess don't zoom across the board like a bishop or the rook. They take it slow, steady, one step at a time. Every move has to be strategic and highly calculated. If you're weak, you have to be careful. If you're unimpressive, sometimes you can fly under the radar and do a great deal of damage. This patient approach for pawns often wins the game because consistent progress adds up over time. And I want you to think about that in life as well, that a patient approach to life, one step at a time, one square at a time, adds up. And that consistent progress can add up to huge change. One of the things that I was taught or learned in change management is oftentimes whenever you come at a problem in an organization or something that you're trying to accomplish, the worst thing that you can do is change something 180 degrees. Take something that's moving in one direction and then immediately spin it and turn it around and move it in the opposite direction. In change management, that usually brings up the greatest amount of resistance because people are used to moving in one direction. They like the thing. They're very comfortable with the thing. And then you immediately change it 180 degrees in the opposite direction. And your new initiative ends up failing. Public support or opinion on it tends to tank. The folks who were in your corner in the beginning cheering you on at this big change abandon you because you were too aggressive. You moved too quickly. You made too much change too fast. Lots of change can happen with the king, with the queen, with the rook, with the bishop, with the knight. Lots of gameplay can happen in a very short number of moves. But the thing that you learn in change management or in trying to move things forward strategically is that sometimes you just need to, instead of going 180 degrees in the opposite direction, sometimes just making a very small change that adjusts things 2 degrees will in the long run begin to make great change just by a very small change in the very beginning. In the game of chess, same thing. Sometimes very small moves, just one square at a time, can have dramatic effects or impacts later on in the game whenever done eyes wide open. In your life too, one step at a time sometimes is the best, most holy, and most advantageous way in which to move through your life and to move through your spiritual life. Consistent progress, one step at a time, rather than trying to take huge leaps and bounds occasionally and perhaps getting stuck, drowning, taking a huge step or a huge leap in the wrong direction. One step at a time. Consistent progress, never stopping, never stalling, but continuing to move forward. Well, that's all the time that we have for today. It's been good to be with you today. Hope you'll be back with us tomorrow as we kind of continue this Bible study. This week, looking at the pawn. If you'd like those study materials, so easy to get. All you need to do is go to the URL that is right there, go.christtable.com. Today/game on. Well, it's been good to be with you. Until tomorrow, happy reading.